Okay, welcome to another Pauper Daily. Gonna do something a little bit different this time. I've been dropping a lot of matches to burn decks and things like that in some of the past dailies, and so I'm gonna give white a try as the supplemental color in the Value Town deck. The main cards that we give up from the red list are the Gitu Slingers, the Lightning Bolts, and the Terminates. Everything else pretty much is black, at least in the main deck. We're going with Aven Riftwatcher in the Gitu Slinger spot. It's a 3-drop that is still going to give us some value. It's going to give us 4 life instead of 2 damage. It does vanish after 3 turns, but it also is evasive, and it blocks 2/2s a lot better than... It doesn't trade if you block with a 2/2. The other card we're going to try is Lone Missionary. He's not that great because basically he's in the Ravenous Rat spot, and I guess I just decided that even though I'd rather them discard than gain 4 life, like I think the trigger on rats is a little bit stronger. The fact that Lone Missionary is a 2/1 is extremely relevant because that allows it to trade with nearly every other rank and file creature in Pauper, whereas Ravenous Rats usually doesn't trade with very much, and if it's allowed to resolve, it still doesn't really present that much of a clock. The opponent can just take a couple of hits while they get other things down. Specifically in like the blue fish matchup, I think Ravenous Rats will end up being better, but especially because we're losing Lightning Bolt, I think we're a little bit more vulnerable to aggro than we normally would be, and Lone Missionary kind of helps there as well. It's kind of odd to add 7 main deck life gain cards and become worse against aggro, but life gain only does so much if you aren't actively taking the opponent's threats off the board. Guardian of the Guild Pact, I believe, is one of the strongest cards in Pauper. A lot of decks can't deal with it at all. There are very few cards that effectively remove a Guardian, and the Guardian gives us some long game, gives us some inevitability, which the other deck didn't have, and also just shuts down a lot of decks like Goblins and things like that. Also blocks ATOG forever, so just a lot of great stuff that it can do. The rest of the deck is basically unchanged. Since we can't run Terminate, we've replaced that with Doomblade. The Unearth package with all the value guys is still around. 4 Phyrexian Ragers, of course. Sign in Blood. I did cut the Wrench Mine because I think we're gonna have trouble casting it on turn 2, and unlike Sign in Blood, it loses a lot of its value if it's not cast early. We've also gone up to 25 lands. I feel like 24.5 is probably the right number, so the 25th land is a Baron Moor, which we're going to attempt to cycle, hopefully every time we draw it. Hopefully we won't need to play it as a land. The sideboard is a little bit creative. I've still got a lot of the tech from the old list. 3 spot removal spells, just like the other list I believe had 4. But we have 3 Tendrils of Corruption. So against aggro, we can still side in a large amount of removal. We can also side into Pestilence, which allows us to have this combo, Guardian of the Guild Pact and Pestilence. Pestilence can kill off waves of creatures, and it will damage each player, but we do have some life gain, and we'll have a Guardian of the Guild Pact that doesn't take damage from Pestilence because it's monocolored. So I think against aggro, we're just going to side out some of the discard and side into removal, and just try to kill off their early threats while we establish... I mean, even without each other, Guardian is just a freaking wall that they can't get through, and Pestilence can wipe their whole board, and so both of those cards are fine. And Duress and Wrench Mind are for the combo control matchups. Grim Harvest is so you can go the long game against the kind of the value grinded out decks. Like, for instance, against the red-black Value Town list, like if I were playing that list with this list, I would just try to get a hold of a Grim Harvest and make land drops, and then every time you trade, you just recover this card, and when it's convenient, you use it to get card advantage, and that's kind of what we're going to be trying to do. So I don't think this deck is necessarily better than the previous list, but I've played a burn deck in probably all of the last 5 or 6 dailies, and I'm just sick of being an underdog to what is such a popular deck. So I'm going to give this list a try tonight, and I built it today, so it hasn't been tested, but it builds on the fundamentals from the last list. So hopefully we can learn a little bit about it together.